target and attack Americans now?
That's an easy problem compared to what we're doing here. But can I be honest? It's just, I have a lot of respect for you. You've always been very nice to me. What a stupid question that is to be asking at this time. We're talking about something else. Can we keep this maybe a little bit?
And just a few minutes ago, the Iranians confirmed Russia is helping.
Are you receiving any help from Russia?
Well, we have a strategic partnership with Russia.
So that's a yes?
And, well, a military cooperation between Iran and Russia is not something new. It's not a secret. It has been in the past, and it's still there and will continue in the future.
General David Petraeus, retired four-star general. What should President Trump do about this?
Well, he should ask Congress to pass the sanctions bill that is in the Senate. Senator Lindsey Graham has led the effort, very close to President Trump, of course. He has over 90 out of 100 senators supporting it. It would be a very powerful signal to Russia. It would complement what the EU has done, which has been very impressive in this regard as well. And I think it's long since time that the sanctions are slapped on Russia, especially now that apparently they're providing the intelligence, which is so very important to the targeting that Iran does. They do not have the kind of intelligence that Russia can share with them and is apparently, and that explains some of the accuracy of the missiles and the drone strikes.
And Epic Fury has been going on for more than a week. We've already seen a part of the Pentagon playbook that we've never seen before, the part where the U.S. has reverse engineered some of these lethal Iranian drones. Listen to this.
You just always hear, we're shooting down a $50,000 drone with a $2 million missile. These days, we're spending a lot of time shooting down $100,000 drones with $10,000 weapons from ours. So that's one aspect of it. Lucas, indispensable. As many of you know, and if you don't know, this was an original Iranian drone design. We captured it, pulled the guts out, sent it back to America, put a little Made America on it, brought it back here.
General, how often does the United States military reverse engineer a weapon to use it against the people who invented it?
Pretty rarely, I suspect. We've certainly taken weapons from different battlefields around the world and sorted out what they consist of, what the capabilities are, what their vulnerabilities are, so that we can develop weapons that can deal with those. You know, we famously brought tanks out, infantry fighting vehicles, others over the years. But no, I'm not aware of something like this in the past and then turning around and using it on the same enemy. What we should also be doing, though, is we should be learning from what the Ukrainians have done, which is nothing short of spectacular and on a scale that is way, way beyond what we're doing. When I was last there about 4 or 5 weeks ago, they told me that they will altogether, all the companies, produce about 7 million drones this year. I think we'll produce 4 or maybe 500,000. So the scale of what they're doing and also the capability of what they have and the low cost of what they have is something from which we should learn as well.
Those numbers are staggering. Something else. We know that there is a campaign in the sky. There could also soon be boots on the ground, though, in Iran, according to President Trump aboard Air Force One last night.
Could there be? Possibly, for a very good reason. Have to be a very good reason. And I would say if we ever did that, they would be so decimated that they wouldn't be able to fight at the ground level.
There's some new reporting this morning, various outlets, that the president is talking about maybe going in and securing some of the uranium facilities that are possibly unsecured. What do you think? Should the president put boots on the ground in Iran?
Well, what I do think is that he shouldn't rule them out, and I think he's been correct in doing that. I think that previous presidents have prematurely ruled out various options that we should have kept alive, at least in the mind of the enemy. I think he'll be very, very careful in making that decision and carrying out whatever might be done. It's possible you could have some sneakers on the ground, some of the individuals from my organization perhaps helping some of the opposition elements, maybe some very special operations forces members or something, but they're not going to be on the front lines. They'll be the advise, assist, and enable elements. There's been talk of actually seizing Karg Island, which is the big oil export location. It's just offshore, well up into the Gulf. And then again, the report that you mentioned about going in to secure the uranium. I suspect that the massive ordnance penetrator would probably obviate the need for that, the 30,000-pound precision munition that only we have, and only we have a plane that can drop it. But I'm sure he'll weigh this very, very carefully, having repeatedly noted the challenges of boots on the ground in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
And it sounds like, so far, according to the president, the top 2 tiers of the Iranian leaders have been totally wiped out. Now there are many mini Iranian command posts spread out all over the country. The Wall Street Journal calls it a mosaic. This is part of their piece. It says, the plan includes implementing a so-called mosaic defense, a decentralized approach that allows individual commanders the autonomy to keep up the fight if cut off from their superiors. You have studied wars in the Middle East for a long time. Can this kind of a mosaic defense that the Iranians are doing actually hold up?
Oh, it can, absolutely. You're talking about a regime force in total. So you're talking about the Revolutionary Guards Corps, the regime force, the besieged militia, the pipe swingers killing people on the streets during demonstrations, national police, the regular Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine. This is 1 million men under arms who have shown a willingness to kill their own citizens in the tens of thousands in January alone during the demonstrations. And they have it very obvious, I think, from the very beginning, because we took out the senior leaders, took out their headquarters, their means of command, control, communications, and so forth. So it was very clear that there has been a delegation of authority, a decentralization, as you termed it, to a number of these lower and mid-level leaders to continue the fight with the assets that they have on hand. And of course, what we've been doing is trying to go after, in particular, the missile launchers and missile stockpiles, and then we'll do the factories as well as now the drones. We've had great success against the missiles. Their launch numbers are down by nearly 90% or so, but there still are some coming. The drones have been a bit more steady, and those have been problematic, even though a number of the countries in the region, especially the UAE, have done very impressively against them and have been taking them down with low-cost, short-range air defense systems rather than $2 million Patriot missile interceptors. That's not good math.
And General Petraeus, my last question. It seems like the beginning parts of Epic Fury have been a big success, overall a big success for the United States. As you look at this, what is your biggest worry about the next couple weeks?
Well, I think President Trump actually captured it quite well, and I thought he was very forthright in stating that the worst outcome would be that the regime survives and another hardline ideological cleric takes the place of Khamenei. That would be problematic. That would mean that we're going to see this again and perhaps again. That's very challenging for a region which has built its brand around security and great infrastructure and great opportunities, visionary leadership, and so forth. So I think that's a huge concern. There's another number of ancillary concerns that are not trivial. The price of Brent crude, we're watching, it is now well over $93 a barrel. It was in the low to mid 60s before all of this started. It could go higher if the markets sense that freedom of navigation through the Gulf and then the Strait of Hormuz, and then on the other side, the Bab el-Mandeb, where the Yemeni Houthis have disrupted operations over time, and we think that might start again. That could be problematic as well. Really, I think it's going to come down, though, to a sense of how well have we done against the military objectives, noting that it's not the military's job to bring about regime change. It's the military's job to create conditions in which political transition could take place if, in fact, there is sufficient internal opposition to the regime. But again, keeping in mind that that regime is nearly 1 million men under arms, you'd have to have a very considerable force, with people who are armed, organized, capable, well-led, to take that on. And I think that's why most analysts right now believe that the base case is the regime survives. Then the question is, what is the character of the new supreme leader? Will he be a bit pragmatic or not? And if or not, then there are going to be further challenging times ahead.
General David Petraeus, that was great, and you set up our next block perfectly. So thank you very much for coming to the Sunday briefing.
Good to be with you, Peter. Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now.
Spam mails taking over your inbox? Switch to Zoho Workplace, the email suite with an award-winning spam blocker. Zoho Workplace.
Could there be possible for very good reason? Have to be a very good reason.
Hello to you from Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates, dragged into the Middle East war because American troops are stationed here. Iranian drones and missiles have been shot out of the sky above us today, while in Iran itself, US and Israeli strikes have been relentless. The country has tonight named Mujtaba Khamenei as its new supreme leader after the assassination of his father, Ayatollah Khamenei. Iran says it won't bow in the face of bullying. The Iranian ambassador to the UN has said more than 1,300 civilians have now been killed since the war began. Israel's military claims it carried out around 3,400 strikes on Iran last week, while BBC Verify has confirmed visual evidence of more than 100 areas where attacks have taken place. Oil depots in and around Tehran have been hit by intense US-Israeli aerial bombardment, with local people reporting multiple explosions today. Well, in a moment, Faisal Islam will take a look at the economic effects of the conflict as global oil supplies drop. But first, Lise Doucette, our chief international correspondent, has our top story tonight on day 9 of the war.
Hell on earth. That's how someone living in this dark described it. Tehran was on fire last night, the Shahran oil depot in flames. One of 30 Israel said it bombed across Iran. The biggest attack in this war on the country's oil facilities, the lifeblood of its economy. Fire tore through the streets, towards shops and homes, into ancient water channels. They're meant to irrigate the trees, cool the city, not burn it. Hassan had been heading to the depot at dusk when the first missile struck.
I turned the truck around on the street so it would be away from the danger. But then when they fired the first missile, 2 more struck right afterwards. The first one struck right over there. Then the gasoline started flowing towards the residential areas.
Today, Tehran was shrouded in toxic smoke. When the rain came, it was black too. Some residents spoke of their suffering in messages sent to the BBC's Persian service.
They've blown it up. Oil depot, Hisar and Baghistan areas. It was as if the night has suddenly turned into day.
The city is really covered in smoke. You can smell the burning. I can't see the sun. There is a horrible smoke. It's still there. I'm very tired. I've been indoors the whole time.
The port city of Bushehr in the south was also targeted. These satellite images show the impact at its naval base, including a capsized vessel at its jetty. The airbase was hit too. This is what it looks like now. Iran is still hitting back. Fragments of an intercepted missile struck this home in Tel Aviv. The emergency services say 8 people were injured today in waves of missile barrages. Some managed to get through Israel's prized air defenses. But Israel and the US say their campaign is succeeding faster than expected.
What we are aiming for is very clear objectives. One, Iran cannot have nuclear capability, and they were rushing again to that capability. Number 2, their long-range missiles. It's also a golden opportunity for the people of Iran to rise up and bring change. We leave it up to them.
And now, there's a new target. Tonight, State TV made the long-awaited announcement. Mujtaba Khamenei is Iran's new supreme leader. He assumes his father's mantle. In his mold, a hardliner, close to the powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guards. The man President Trump didn't want, the leader Israel says is in their sights. The commander-in-chief, in charge of Iran's existential battle. Lise Doucette, BBC News.
Tonight, it's been confirmed a 7th US service member has died from injuries sustained last week in an Iranian attack on troops in Saudi Arabia. Well, Sarah Smith is live at the White House for us now. Is there any reaction so far from the Oval Office, Sarah, to the news of a new supreme leader?
Well, we had already heard from Donald Trump that the Ayatollah's son was an unacceptable choice. He dismissed him as a lightmate. And he had already said that anyone who hasn't been approved by him, who was chosen to lead Iran, wouldn't last for very long. So we haven't heard from him directly yet since the announcement was made, but he's made his views very clear about this. And that just feeds into the confusion that there is about exactly what it is the US is trying to achieve in Iran, because we hear from them variously that they want to stop Iran's nuclear program and stop it developing nuclear weapons and destroy its conventional weapons. But then we also hear Donald Trump talking about regime change, demanding unconditional surrender from the Iranian regime, while at the same time he put out a post on Truth Social this weekend criticising Sir Keir Starmer for being too late in joining a war he said had already been won. And now we learned today he's even contemplating putting US troops into Iran, putting American boots on the ground to try to grab and destroy the stockpiles of rich uranium that there are in that country. So you can see that there's a real contrast between the tactical military successes the regime is able to boast about and the lack of any clear strategy as to what those strikes actually want to achieve in Iran.
Sarah, thank you for that. Sarah Smith, our North America editor there, live at the White House. Well, there have been more Iranian attacks right across this Gulf region, not just here in Abu Dhabi, with strikes affecting several states, Saudi Arabia. And the officials there have released pictures which they say show them destroying a number of drones. But 2 people were reportedly killed when a projectile came down in an area southeast of the capital, Riyadh. The King of Bahrain has given a rare speech condemning Iran over unprecedented and unjustifiable attacks on his country and its allies. While Dubai International Airport was targeted yesterday, but more passengers have been able to fly today. And Kuwait has been hit by drones with a strike on an office building in Kuwait City. Attacks last week on Gulf states and their energy facilities sent oil prices soaring. As the war progresses, is further disruption ahead? Here's Faisal Islam.
Given the extraordinary developments in the Gulf, the oil markets have actually been calmer than might have been expected after the shutdown in energy flows. But this weekend, scenes of damage and some destruction at energy facilities, both in Iran and across the Gulf, are set to shake markets further in the coming days and hours. A fifth of both the crude oil and shipped natural gas trade flows through this narrow strait between Iran and Oman. It has been more or less shut for a week now, shutting in jet fuels and fertilisers as well as oil and gas. The question: will this last the rest of the month or even longer? In addition to this, Iran's energy facilities were hit hard this weekend, with much talk about its main export facility, Karg Island. Iran has, in recent days, hit energy facilities in many Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Qatar. And that could have a longer-term impact.
Major oil producers in the region have actually started to cut production. Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE, we know Qatar has cut production of liquefied natural gas. All of this will add to prices, in the next few weeks to months.
The price of petrol and diesel is going up noticeably, and that's being felt in forecourts across the world, including the USA.
Everybody got bills and stuff. Now the gas is going way back up again. Man, we're all going to have to get electric cars or something. But now, I don't know what's going on.
All of this has come from the oil price up about 25% to over $93 a barrel on Friday, and many in the markets anticipate it hitting $100 in the coming days. When President Trump's energy secretary spoke to CNN, he tried to calm markets.
There are no plans to target Iran's oil industry, their natural gas industry, or anything about their energy industry. If these are Israeli strikes.
An oil blockage is one thing, but as Gulf nations like the UAE repeatedly engage Iranian drones, the targeting of critical energy infrastructure in almost every Gulf country takes this into much more volatile territory. Faisal Islam, BBC News.
And we've got some news for you that's just come in the last few seconds. In early trading in Asia, Brent crude oil prices have now topped $100 a barrel, a significant milestone. Much more on that from Faisal a little later on in the programme. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Defence says British fighter jets have shot down an Iranian drone heading towards Iraq last night. While today, Sir Keir Starmer and Donald Trump have been discussing military cooperation. Now, it comes after the President once again criticised the UK's response to the war, suggesting the US no longer needed the naval ships Britain is poised to send to the Middle East. Here's Damien Grammaticus.
RAF Fairford in Gloucestershire, now a staging post for US aircraft to and from the Middle East. The Prime Minister and the US President discussed this military cooperation in their phone call this afternoon, the first since the start of the war last weekend. Missions from here, Downing Street said, are only for the collective defence of the UK's partners in the region. Donald Trump has taken offence at Sir Keir's decisions, including the news the UK is preparing an aircraft carrier for possible deployment.
We don't need them. It's not the right time. It would have been nice to have had them 2 weeks ago.
Mr. Trump was also offended that Sir Keir did not agree to let US planes use British bases in the opening salvos of the US war on Iran. The Foreign Secretary was asked about this souring of relations.
It's for the US President to decide what he thinks is in the US national interest, and that's for him to do. But it is our job as the UK government to decide what's in the UK national interest. And that doesn't mean simply agreeing with other countries or outsourcing our foreign policy.
A Labour Prime Minister who did go along with the US President, Tony Blair, who joined George Bush's 2003 invasion of Iraq. That decision was highly controversial. Over a decade later, an official inquiry said the case for war was not justified, there was no imminent threat, and the plans for the aftermath were wholly inadequate. Mr. Blair is now part of Trump's Gaza Board of Peace. At a private speech in the US on Friday, he said the UK should have backed America from the beginning in this war too.
Having been a minister in the last Labour government, I also think it is important to learn lessons from what went wrong in Iraq.
Those lessons, Keir Starmer says, are to decide whether any action is lawful and part of a properly thought-through plan before the UK joins in.
That's what Keir Starmer has been doing. And I think he's right to stand up for Britain and Britain's interests.
Meanwhile, the destroyer HMS Dragon, which is being deployed to protect Cyprus and the British base there, may leave in the next couple of days.
They can't get to sea, can't get welders and spare parts. They're sat on the equipment programme, and they have been for some time. They have got to start taking it seriously.
Reform UK say the ship should have been deployed already, but British pilots should not be involved in attacks on Iran.
For us to be deploying British airmen in bombing raids over Iran right now, when our allies have not asked us to do that, then no, I don't think that's necessary. We shouldn't be endangering British personnel unnecessarily.
Keir Starmer has invested much in trying to build a relationship with Donald Trump, but the decisions this war has presented mean it's already on shaky ground. Dame Grammaticus, BBC News.
We're going to get a little bit more from Damien, who's in Downing Street a little later. But first, Duncan Kennedy is at RAF Fairford in Gloucestershire, where more US warplanes have been arriving. RAF Fairford, Duncan, seems to be taking on quite an important role in this war.
It really is, Clive. The tempo of activity has really picked up in the past couple of days or so. Just today, 2 giant Globemaster transport aircraft touched down here. And in the past 48 hours, 4 B-1 bombers have landed here. Why Fairford? Well, it's all about refueling. Fairford's equidistance between the east coast of the United States and Iran, about 3,000 miles either way. And of course, the Americans can only use this base and the one in the Chagos Islands, Diego Garcia, after getting permission from Sir Keir Starmer on the basis that all missions are defensive in nature. And that's okay for the B-1 bomber. It can carry up to 24 cruise missiles, very accurate, that can take out drone sites or ballistic missile sites and stop them launching their weapons against British bases in the region and Allied bases as well. But what if 2, 3, 4 weeks down the line, the Americans come back and say, we'd like to start using these bases for offensive weapons and offensive missions? Well, then the debate, the tensions between the United Kingdom and the United States will start all over again.
And Damien, what more do we know from the MOD about this British fighter jet shooting down an Iranian drone heading towards Iraq last night?
Clive, very little on that, other than simply that that drone was heading for Iraq. The important thing there, I think, is the message that the government wants it to be known that the UK is involved in the region, even if it's in those defensive actions. Now, I think what is important, though, is that phone call, the first between Keir Starmer here and President Trump since the first day of the war. We know it was about 20 minutes long. We know very little about what was in it. Now, that might be perhaps because there were sensitive things being discussed. It might perhaps indicate that it was not an easy conversation. We don't know. But this war has presented not just the government, but all the parties here with difficult decisions and choices. The Conservatives, for example, say we should be taking part in those offensive actions in Iran. That leaves them open to the charge made by the Lib Dems that would be reckless. Reform want to kind of face both ways, criticise the government for slow deployments, but actually have the same position on strikes. The government, I think, feels is treading that difficult path while trying not to alienate President Trump.
All right, Damien Grammaticus outside number 10 and Duncan Kennedy at RAF Fairford. Thanks for joining us. We've entered another phase in this war. After the Iranian leadership was attacked, then came strikes on command and control centers, military barracks, missile and drone launchers, as well as the factories that make them. Now it's the economic infrastructure of Iran that's under threat, with the oil industry being hit. Life for millions of Iranians, which was already intolerable in this conflict, is now actually getting worse.